I was employed at Stockholm University for a number of years. I was employed at Gothenburg University for many years, which is my alma mater. I worked in the University of Southern California for about a decade. Worked with Institute for Creative Technologies, developed virtual humans. My basic PhD is in general linguistics. I've written theses about court interactions, all kinds of cases, including rape cases. But I was not interested in the law. I was interested in the interactions with the human-machine interaction. I mean, design of virtual humans or artificial intelligence, which I did in the United States for many years. Partially, these projects are actually supported and initiated by the army and the military. So I have very clear experience with them. It was a combination between Hollywood scholars that they chose from all around the world and the military. My story that brings me back actually to you, otherwise you'll probably never hear of me. I will be writing only in science papers, and only scientists will talk to me and I will talk to them, and nothing else will happen. Starts with me reading somewhere, which I can't really remember where it was, about gang rape in Nynäshamn, where really completely out of chance, I managed to see the face of a girl, a Swedish girl, who has posted her beaten blue face, and she wrote that she was raped by more than 5 unknown to her guys who didn't speak Swedish or English, and that was exactly during Eurovision. I remember it was the Melodifestivalen. So people were very busy listening to Melodifestivalen, watching SVT 1, 2, and she was raped. Not very late, between 10 and 11 o'clock in the evening. She was found in the morning, completely frozen and beaten, and she was in shock. She was in hospital. I wanted to find out what was going on, what happened with her. And then a friend of mine, Swedish friend of mine from university, told me there is this place where you can find this information. It's called Flashback. I had never heard of it before. It was like 2017, and I had never heard of Flashback. I've never heard of Expo. I've never heard of anything. I had no idea this is going on. I had arrived in Sweden not long ago. My mother passed away. She was living in Sweden, and I really never heard of these things. I didn't know this was going on. I was like everybody else who is watching SVT 1 and SVT 2, although I never watched SVT 1 and SVT 2. I still didn't know anything. So I went and saw this text, and this text is saying Bio har outat sig själv på Facebook idag. Då står jag fast vid mitt tidigare inlägg att jag inte tänker sprida hennes namn. I read this as a police person. I think this person is a police hiding behind some different ID. So this is how I enter into the interaction in Sweden, that there are policemen that are hiding their IDs, they're discussing the situation with the rape cases that are all hidden and strangely conceived. I never heard anything about her. I know she was in hospital. And I made a comment. I had just gotten on Twitter. I have never been active. I had no idea how people could at all get on social media. I was so busy, I had never time for anything, and people forced me to do it because I had to teach this. I had to teach communication and social media, and I had no experience. I actually went to Twitter, and what shall I do there? And it was, I thought, okay, I'll find out about the gang rapes and see what's happened, maybe people know. So that's how I got into this topic. Then at the same time, I heard about, completely also out of chance, about some angry detective. And in front of my own eyes, as I'm standing next to a friend who has Facebook and I don't, I'm seeing, like, we're watching how this angry detective has written this text, and he's getting enormous amount of followers, like in 0 time. this is the time that this is starting, so to say. Then I started to be curious. How come there is such an incredible event and a horrible crime, a most sadistic crime, and no one talks about it? It's nothing in the media. No one else says anything about it. I was very surprised by that. I thought this would be the main topic in the country. It's when you say country, it's 10 million people. That's nothing. I lived in LA for 10 years. Like, we are 14 million, and just the city. So the scope is completely different. So I read about a case where a woman was raped by 8 men, and she was a native Swedish woman, and the perpetrators who were convicted were actually seeking refugee in Sweden, and got no deportation. That surprised me tremendously. How is that possible? For no victim can manage anything of the kind. The victim should immediately be removed from access to the people who perpetrated. It's absolutely necessary. She cannot recover otherwise. Then I started reading other things. 144 indicted gang rapes, 6,000 rape cases reported to the police in 2011. This is not new to them. So I'm in this situation in 2017 reading about rape and shocked by it. But this is 2011. So this is not new. People know about this. So there are more than 17% were group violence. If these people have no, I'm reading this in the journal Research in Progress in 2013. The estimated time for convictions for Swedish names and non-Swedish names were tremendously different. Not to talk about it that there were very few convicted rapists, even the group so-called gang rapists. Then I read this, 2012. This is a UN report. How is it possible? This is known. I'm in 2017. I don't see anything done about this. This is outrageous. This is sadism, and this is collective sadism. Then I read this. Okay, what are the politicians doing? Who is the politician in Sweden, I wondered? Well, it is a person called Löfven. Okay. What is he saying? Well, he's calling it harassment. He's calling it sexual harassment. How can you call a rape a sexual harassment? How can you call a gang rape sexual harassment? So he's part of the sadism. Then I heard for the first time when I read this, it was Lars Bern, and I started reading because I thought, well, this is incredible. I don't understand. How can Swedish men tolerate this? And he's very rightfully saying we don't. We're not doing it. So it is a form of accusation of entire folk, of entire people, for being rapists, and we're not doing it. I don't want to be called rapist, gang rapist. This is a very natural reaction again. So then I see articles saying that the rapes may increase in 2016. So now people are warned that the rapes are increasing during the summer. You're expecting it to happen. Where is the action? What are we doing about this? Destroying people's lives. Then I heard about this story. A handicapped woman in a wheelchair was raped by 6 refugees on Gotland, Sweden. And then the reactions against they were released in a few days because she didn't resist physically, although she's handicapped. These are things that are beyond normal imagination. And I read the prosecutor's statement. And then I saw that people were gathered and protested against this decision. And then there was another group of people that were protesting against the protesters and calling them Nazis. Why would you call someone a Nazi if they stand up for a raped, handicapped people in a toilet by 6 unknown to her, completely insane situation? Makes absolutely no sense. Then I read this. However, so this is BBC News. However, Sweden is believed to have the highest number of Islamic State fighters per capita in Europe. About 140 to 300 who went to Syria are coming and they have difficulties to reintegrate them in society. And the article title was "How Sweden Became an Exporter of Jihad." This is BBC. BBC. I mean, BBC did not even talk about the rapes in Rotterdam, but they are talking about this. So what I completely, totally out of chance, I'm seeing on Twitter some account called Gang Rape Sweden, and it comes out there and publishes itself. It is an American site published in Los Angeles, where I lived for 10 years. So I was thinking, well, who could that be? It could be some Swedish person or Swedish data, but it's actually in English. So I went in and I saw that these were actual, I couldn't believe it. These were the actual verdicts for each gang rape case. They were only about 112, but still, that's a lot of cases. And you could actually read them, so I read them. It took me 2 weeks to recover from each reading. It's a horrific form of sadism that I recommend everybody to read. People don't want to read it because it is not positive news, and it's not nice, and it's not buffet, but sooner or later, we are all going to be in this situation. We are all now exposed to it because it has been tolerated for such a long time and completely unknown to me reasons. So I read them and then I decided to, is this really true? Could that really be true? So I decided to check all this stuff. So I contacted the 43 courts in Sweden. I just wrote an email. Could you please send me these ledgers you have for as long as possible? They had 5 years for over the court cases for rapes and gang rapes in Sweden. And they sent me. Each court sent it to me, either on paper or per email, and it has to be verified and so on. So I just collected all this and went through it. I can't believe it. It was just thousands and thousands and thousands of these pages. Like you read them like this, one after the other, from all the courts. When I counted them, I just count like this. These are cases. These are not just reports. So you can imagine that the reports are even more, because it's very difficult for them to get even to the point in which they have opened this B number. I had to learn about that. Before they open the B number to record them in the courts, they have to go through a pre-investigation. Most of them are stopped on pre-investigation. Here we have 50,000 cases. And look how many children. These are child rapes. Rapes. I mean, weren't we supposed to be loved? So I decided to contact somebody, Charles Hotel, completely unknown to me person. For some reason, a man had written to me on Twitter, "I like how you think. Can you follow me? Do you want to get my..." He has some kind of a newsletter. Sure, I had no idea who Hotel is, but he's writing his newsletter and so on. So I decided, okay, I'll write to him. And I know he connected me to Daily Caller, and Daily Caller is Tucker Carlson's newspaper. And suddenly Danish radio contacted me because I retweeted this Gang Rape Sweden, and I said it's true. I verified it. All the data are correct. I saw the same numbers. I read the same cases. So I thought, isn't anybody writing about it here in Sweden? People have to know, they have to be warned. The young children and women and parents have to be warned, because if they don't know about it, they are exposed unknowingly. And that's a crime by itself, I would say. So I did send to Tucker Carlson and Daily Caller all of this data. And you know what they did? They went through each page and each name. They checked everything from beginning to end. Also my credentials, who I am, everything. And then came the strange expression that suddenly came out of nowhere. Then Trump, in one of his rallies, says, "Do you see what's going on in Sweden last night?" Because they made a show about Sweden and they showed the data with the gang rapes. I asked them not to give them my name because my friend who told me about Flashback told me that this is dangerous. You shouldn't talk about this and don't mention my name. And I was like, but this is gang rape, so everybody is united. This is humanity. It has nothing to do with politics. It's just human life. I even went to the department and suggested the project. Right then happened also the terror attack. So after terror, I'm doing this while the terror attack is happening. I'm checking the data. So I wrote the project. And the project was to develop a virtual therapist with a simulation that I've worked in the United States, where we developed such things for veterans coming from different wars that need help with PTSD, which has been mentioned here today. And very few people really understand what it really is. So I decided to write the project, embodied in emotion and reciprocal adaptation between post-traumatic stress disorder patients and therapists. Each word that I mention here is a technical term in the science that we work in. For instance, reciprocal adaptation, that people start to imitate each other the longer time they spend with each other. Because of the amount of the rapes, I checked how many hours there are for therapy. Even if they don't get, even if only 5% get to a verdict, still they have to get some therapy. The victims need help. We can't just leave them like this. First, we expose them to it by not even discussing it, and second, we leave them without help. I cannot bear it, and I couldn't bear it. So if they want to crucify me, and they can do it, but that wouldn't change their crime. So yes, I suggested the project, met with one of my colleagues. He was professor at the University of here in Stockholm University, where I was teaching in Kista for about 4 years. They invited me. They wanted me to teach there. I was because I was on the level associate professor. You can check master level essays. They had a lot of issues with the education. We had to check how the articles and so on were written, and a lot of problems, shocking deficiency of educational standards. In any case, I'm suggesting this project. I've written it. By that time, because I was writing a book, I had taken a so-called research association. Rather than teaching all the time, which I was doing before until 2014, I was not teaching, but I was writing, and I was writing a book which came out, and I showed you the book at first. It was Emotion and Group Decision Negotiation. This affiliation is very important, because in Sweden you cannot have any projects. So even if I come up with great ideas, I cannot realize them in any possible way if I don't have a host. And the host can be only a state institution. This is an university. It's not like in the States where I can go to private universities and private institutions and have think tanks and so on. This is not happening here. I have to be with a host if I want to have projects. I have had a number of projects with the University of Southern California. They traveled with me to the United States, brought people here. We had organized a conference in intercultural communication and group decision and negotiation with people from all around the world. So all my ideas, all my projects. So I had a new one, and that was the one I suggested. What I wanted to explain for the PTSD, whoever is hearing and listening about it, PTSD is a physical change of the morphology of the brain. So the amygdala and a number of other entities have changed size. When it's hyperactivated, that is, you've been shocked. All the new rape victims, those that have for first time have been raped, because as you understand, there is a lot of recidivism in these cases, and which is a disaster. You're literally destroying people, even if they're still alive. So the amygdala is becoming changing sides and becoming too sensitive. So even if a very small thing happens, then everything, you feel as if the world is exploding. And becomes very real, even if you see it in a movie. So if you and I watch a movie, for us it will be, oh, an explosion. Oh, that's interesting, the lighting was good. These people actually experience it, start creeping on the ground. So that's how we created this kind of simulations to help PTSD patients from different wars. The other side is amygdala atrophy, and that is very important for all of us to understand why the Swedish society is reacting as it is. The more liberal a society and the more peaceful and satisfied and well-to-do a society is, the more the amygdala atrophies, because there is not enough stimulation of trouble. You have to have some kind of crisis, it doesn't have to be crisis, but it has to be some kind of stress, some level of stress in which you actually develop normal state of amygdala activation. But you could also get into the state of amygdala atrophy. And that is when explosion happens right now. Let's say something explodes outside, and then all of you are sitting and drinking your tea or watching Eurovision while someone is raped. Do you understand what's going on? So we have atrophied amygdalas that are exposed to incredibly sadistic violence and shock. The reaction of an atrophied muscle. If you have an atrophied muscle, you haven't used your muscle very much, so it's become small. And all of a sudden you have to carry 50 kilos on that arm that has atrophied. What would you think would happen? You can't. You can't take it. It's the same thing with the brain. It can't take it. This is why people react the way they react. That's why there is no reaction. So when I was suggesting this, here I was going to show you how the virtual humans look like and so on, and how they could be developed. And I contacted my colleagues and we wrote the text together and we started a common project. We thought it would be great. We're going to help the Swedish the victims of abuse in Sweden. And all of a sudden, just I would say 3 weeks after I suggested this to the Stockholm University's project, I got this letter. It was a letter from a professor in the university. His name was Une Fors, my colleague. I hope it's not bad that I say who I got the letter from, but you could read it also. And you cannot read it very well, no. Well, I can read a little bit for you. He's saying that it is not okay that I'm active on Twitter, discussing, among other things, immigration, nationalism, and lots of other sensitive issues. I have discussed only one issue on Twitter, and that's the gang rapes. Everybody who has followed me from the moment I got on Twitter was on, you could say, end of 2016, because before that I didn't even know what to do. Knows that my account, this account, which is not mine anymore, but this account was dedicated to the research of the gang rape situation. I wanted to get the data and find out what we can do and how we can help these people. To this email, he had attached this tweet. And this tweet is a retweet of Gang Rape Sweden. Gang Rape Sweden says that some person that I'd never heard of, didn't know who it was, is organizing a terror network, Jag är här. I had never heard of the terror network, Jag är här. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know who this person was. I didn't know any of this, but it said that she actually works in Stockholm University, and I was like, for that university, so I thought, could it be? Could that really be true? So I asked, at that time you could write shorter than we write today. Today we have double as much tokens to write, and today there you could write very shortly. So I wrote, okay, the organization dedicated to hate, to studying hate and hate crime and so on. She was the communication strategist, the site said. And I was wondering, is it possible that you can teach media and communication during the day, and in the evening you go home and you start censoring people and removing their accounts and
like silencing them. I thought this was strange. There is no communication theory at all that says that this is good for communication. That was a very simple question. I still ask the same question. Instead of answering this question to me, they sent me this letter. And if you see, the same day, my affiliation, I have worked all my life to become a professor. It's not that this is my goal to become a professor, but I have put a lot of effort into my research, into my writing, into my teaching of thousands of people, and all of a sudden it is blown up in the air in 2 minutes. Who is this? How could this happen? In this country, without warning, no one called me. No one told me, you know what, in Sweden we cannot talk about the gang rapes. Why didn't you name it? If they had told me, then I would do it a different way. I will still do it, but I will do it differently. Nothing, no warning, no talking, no nothing. Then I wondered what is Jaga Här. So Jaga Här was actually attacking people online and how they did it. And they say how they do it. And who are the members? At that time you could actually see who the members are. And one of them is a woman who is actually head of MUCF, the organization that gives money to Näthatgranskaren. She's the person who actually gave his first 500,000 or 1 million in a document I read from Amy Mack, because I translate the data for her.
This woman gave 500,000?
Yes. I can send you there is in the MUS, this Agency for Youth Education in Sweden. It's a government organization. Yes, she's the one who accepted the first project he wrote, and she gave him the money. But I know of her from that time, 2017. So I don't know her really, but this is documents that have been there. They are available, and you can read, yes, this person is part of Jaga Här, and this person also is part of a government agency. Now if you go to Jaga Här, you see that there are 64,000 people, so all of them are against one person, and that's the associate professor who mentioned the gang rapes. One person. I'm not on Facebook. Why am I there? Because Nia Tider wrote an article about it. When that happened, I just told my neighbors, my friends, they see me sad and they don't understand what's going on, and I was just told them I was just removed from university, and I don't understand why. I don't know. There is a picture of some person and some tweet, and they say that I'm not supposed to talk about gang rapes, and I was just very confused and didn't understand and saddened that my colleagues did not even talk to me. We worked together, we know each other, we've been conference together, and all of a sudden it's happening just like that. So then I requested, Nia Tider called me, and I told them what happened. They wrote an article. They were extremely thorough. A number of journalists called me then, and I talked only to Dan Malmqvist because he was extremely meticulous. He wanted to see every project I had with Stockholm. He wanted to make sure that it's really true, that I'm not lying. I think it was good to be thorough in that. Then later on I requested the offentliga handlingar. This is the only right we have left. I hope it will stay. We will still have it. That is to see what happened and why was I removed and what happened. Then I found out that this same person from Jaga Här has written hundreds of emails to my colleagues in different universities, telling them that I am. Could you read it? Can you read it? Maybe we can it has to do with the distance between this and this. That's why you can't see.
Can you read it? Okay, read it. And I think she proposed that
I'm removed.
Gangrapesweden.com is not, alltså det är ingen seriös sida.
Hon säger att hon har polisanmält. Så hon har polisanmält mig att jag har retweetat Gang Rape Sweden och därför jag är nazist. Att jag felaktigt uppger att hon jobbar på SU och hon är registrerad som doktorand. Var befinner sig Biljana nu? Jag förstår inte varför ni vill förknippas med henne och legitimera henne. Flera vid SU informerade säkerhetsavdelningen och pressavdelningen. So, if you, I have all the correspondence, hundreds of pages. I really recommend everybody to read it. I'm going to ask you to put it somewhere. So, these are offentliga handlingar. Anybody can read it, right? Right? I don't know, lawyers. Read it. It's an important document of our time. They have, because of this question that I asked, could you be communication, teach communication, and at the same time shut down communication? That question, this only question from this retweet, I mean, I've been talking about game breaks for a year. Why didn't they do it earlier? That question made the situation so bad that they decided to remove my associate professorship from university, cut me off from all universities. I'm not allowed to apply anywhere. I cannot even apply for a project. I'm not allowed to apply for a project. Imagine, not just to apply for a project, not to mention to teach or anything like that. It's an incredibly cruel treatment, and it is this kind of letters. And then here she says, "Don't mention me. You promise not to mention my name." In an offentlig handling document. I mean, what do they think? Am I going to commit suicide after this? Or what do they think I'm going to do? Just sit there and wonder, yes. I don't understand how they're thinking. They continue communicating with each other. And they are preparing an article in the Dagens Nyheter together. Employees of the communication department at Stockholm University. And, I shouldn't mention that should be cut off from the